We're here today at Bollinger Atelier to introduce you to our 2024 Shemer Honors honoree, Tom Bollinger. Shemer Honors is an annual event held by the Shemer Art Center. Every year, we select one Arizona artist to honor who has given back to the community and had a successful career. Last year, we honored Ed Mell, and before that, we honored Mame Kratz, Mark Klett, Beth Ames Schwartz, Bill Nebaker, Meryl Mahaffey, Jim Wade, and Angela Tassoni. This year, we are pleased to introduce you to Tom and his journey. For the past 50 years, Tom has been a prolific studio artist. He has also helped countless artists create, engineer, and produce their own works of art. Let's go inside and meet Tom and see his works.
Well, I think it was both my parents were educators and grew up in North Dakota. I think my dad had a childhood friend that was a Native American, and so when they graduated from college, my dad was in the Navy in World War II and finished college on the GI Bill, and so for whatever reason, they took a job on the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota. And so, I mean, it was a pretty idyllic life, a little bit of Tom Sawyer, and, you know, it was a different world, but it was a great way to grow up. So we lived on, that's 48 North Dakota, then we moved to Pine Ridge, South Dakota, the Ogallala Sioux. So Standing Rock is basically Sitting Bull's tribe, the Hunkpapa Sioux. And then the Ogallala Sioux would be Crazy Horse, American Horse, and all those guys. So I would, you know, I was going to school with kids that were named, you know, American Horse is their last name, or, you know, so they had these very colorful ancestors. But there's a lot of poverty. And, you know, so we lived there until I was sophomore in high school. My dad took the position at the Phoenix Indian School, and then I went to Central High School. And so it was a pretty big culture shock. One of my earliest memories is literally being on an Indian blanket at a powwow and watching the drummers. I was maybe 2 years old. And, you know, my parents stayed late, but just watching the drummers chant and hit the rhythm. But I really wasn't exposed to art until, I mean, college. I was unaware. We did not, these are very remote locations, you know. So I do remember one of my friends' mom was also a teacher, and one year she brought in or bought a little packet of color plates of artwork, famous artwork. And I remember looking at that and thinking, this is a pretty cool thing. Well, I come from a long line of educators who probably started out as they were athletes and physical education and coaches. My dad was a basketball coach and won the state championship in North Dakota. He coached against Lute Olson. Lute Olson was in a town called Mayville. You know, these were young guys, you know, just starting their careers. I got a scholarship to wrestle for Dickinson State University and then also played football. Anyway, so I went to school on an athletic scholarship in North Dakota and had a recreation minor, phys ed major. So for the recreation degree, I had to take some art classes. And so I took ceramics, took another course of sculpture, called my parents, told them I wanted to become an art major. And they said, well, you can do that, but you better get a business degree too. So I got 2 degrees in 6 years. Well, I came back to Arizona, and you know, I had a job offer using my business degree with the state of Arizona as an entry-level accountant, and that was about the last thing I wanted to do. So I ended up taking a job at Phipp and Bronze in Prescott and worked with them for a while until Arizona Bronze, that was in Tempe, had a position for me. They were mostly doing, you know, if you name from that era, a lot of the Western artists in Arizona, they were doing a lot of that. I would say Heloise Christa, who worked with Frank Lloyd Wright Taliesin. She did some pretty contemporary figurative work. I think I was about 5 years in, and so I went to Shidoni Foundry, and they had a bigger national reach than Arizona Bronze, so there were a lot of contemporary artists, Judy Chicago, Louise Nevelson, um, Dwayne Valentine. I mean, these are all names that were popular at the time. And so I started as an artisan and then ended up becoming a manager. And I think I was there for about 8 years. Went to Bennett Brothers. So I wasn't there that long, but we produced a few pieces for the NBA, Sacramento Kings Stadium. And, you kind of learn a lot every place you go. Well, probably the most noteworthy was Jasper D'Ambrosi, who started the foundry. Great sculptor, became my mentor. And of course, Ed Mell. That's when I first met Ed, when I was an artisan at Arizona Bronze. It's sort of a long list of those 80s artists, or late 70s, early 80 artists in Arizona. So I've been chasing sculpture. So after received a big commission for a development company in Charlotte, North Carolina for Omni International Hotel in Jacksonville, Florida. And so that was a 35-foot sculpture, high polished bronze called Release. And actually I formed a group, and we had a studio down on 7th Street in Buckeye. And this was around the era where the Jackson Street studios were going on before the stadiums were built, and Maricopa County Justice Center. So it was all pretty, we were young, and so it was a pretty active social scene among artists. So it was good. One of the things about being a studio artist, you can have a great year with a great commission, and then the next year maybe not so much. At this point, I had my daughter. My wife and I had divorced. I was a single father. And so I called Tommy Hicks at Shidoni, and they were in kind of a jam, so he asked me to come back. So that was my second time at Shidoni. So it was, you're chasing the opportunities, and I guess for me, I was a little bit restless until I had my own business. It's easy when you're an employee. Two things: it's probably easy to not take responsibility, but it frustrated me that I knew we could run the businesses better than they had been running. And so that was really the motivation to get my own foundry. I think that probably been a pull for me I'm not really a city person. I grew up in rural areas, and so that was appealing to me. So I had a big studio there. Had a little partner that came from Paris, Jay Markle, who walked in one day. He was a Kansas City Art Institute professor and had gone to Paris to work for 3 or 4 years, and went to Sedona. He was looking for a place to relocate. That used to happen a lot in the arts. People would go from place to place, trying to figure out what the best path is. And so he just walked in one day, and he said, the people over in Sedona said, you're the guy you got to meet. So we worked together for a few years and built a little foundry. Well, I was at Shidoni, and Tommy Hicks had retired. Energetically, it was becoming difficult. And actually, I took the opportunity, but Mark D'Ambrosi was on his way with Mark McDowell and a couple other, Robert Knight. They were on a bike trip to go to Sturgis. They stopped in Santa Fe, and he asked me to lunch, and he just asked me if I wanted to buy it. And I said, well, I'm on my way I just accepted a job in New York at Talix. So let's see how that goes. And, my desire was to have my own place, and was reinforced after and I think there's an independent streak in me that may or may not be helpful, but, I really wanted to succeed. So it seemed like a golden opportunity. I had a giant estate in the Hudson Valley in Cold Springs, right across the Hudson from West Point. Had a company Audi, had all the trimming, bells and whistles. I only made it about 6 months. Here's the transition. November, 2 days before Thanksgiving, 1997, I walk in, they leave and never come back. There was a lot of sorting out who's going to stay and who's not going to stay and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I would say that the first 3 to 4 years I just operated out of total and complete fear that I was going to fail, and probably worked 80 to 100 hours a week. So I inherited their client, and people ask me, why didn't you just start your own foundry here? And because it wasn't necessarily that inexpensive to buy them out. But it's a natural, to me, it was they already had a client base, they have cash flow. If I open another place, I'm competing with them. We're both going to suffer because at that time, there were a lot of local artists, but there weren't a lot of out-of-state artists using Arizona bronze. I think the other thing that helped me was my relationships and contacts that I had made in New York and Santa Fe. So, we're an anomaly. This business is an anomaly. We compete with some of the biggest art foundries in the world, but we're this little tiny place all the way out in Tempe, Arizona. So it's maybe all businesses are a relationship business, but this really is a relationship business. And what I learned when I went to Talix was that we had 120 artisans. That's a factory. That's not, you're not having very many conversations with your clients to sort through their work. It just becomes a production. We try to stay away from that here. I don't overbook. So it's, I guess I would call it a boutique foundry compared to those places. I had no exposure to business in our family. And on the reservation, there were very few private businesses. So it was, I just thought, well, how do all these people make money? It can't just come from your job. You have to have the ability to use your own skill set to generate more funds, We've been very fortunate to, starting with the relationship, I think really opened up the door for us in New York was some of the artists that I'd worked with at Talix recommended me to Kiki Smith. And so we did a whole body of work for her Alice series. And then, and that world of studios in New York, they also have sort of a flow chart of the artists and assistants that go from one studio to another, depending on the need. And so one of Kiki's assistants went to Tom Sack's studio, and that was a big break. He was doing his Lever House show. So we produced, I think, 4 fairly large pieces and one gigantic piece, a 25-foot wind-up kitty that went to Lever House, and kitty fountain, a Miffy fountain, a My Melody, skateboard ramps. I mean, it was a huge show. And so over time, it's just been recommendation, and so we are really existing because of our reputation and other artists seeing what we've accomplished. So over the years, it's probably the most famous artist we've worked with is Louise Bourgeois. We produced her last. She passed away in the middle of the project. It was a 25-foot, high-polished aluminum couple in one of her, we called it Spiral. It was actually called The Couple. And we worked with Donald Batchelor. We did one whole edition of her spiders. Yeah, did her spiders. For that level of artist, they usually go to a museum first, the Nasher or the National Museum, or, but we've done a lot of work with Pace Gallery and Speroni Gallery and, galleries in London, Paris, Ropac. It's just, I think the North Dakota ethic is you make a promise and you keep it. And in the art world, that goes a long way. If you say you're going to get it done at this amount of money and you do it, that builds reputation. So that's the business side of it. I had been making my own personal art all along. We would have shows at the foundry, and I would enter competitions, and public art was just getting started, the Percent for Arts. But no, I've always been making sculpture. I realized that capitalizing galleries as a sculptor, unless you're in New York where you can get a higher price, is very difficult, because you've put out all the capital to produce the work. Gallery's getting 50%. You get your part, but you have to make another one. And so when I came and was approached back to Arizona, when I bought Arizona Bronze, a couple of galleries approached me, and my pitch was, if you want to show 6 sculptures, I'll fund 3 of them if you fund the other 3. And nobody ever wanted to do that. So now it's with a lot of our New York artists, the galleries paid for the production. And I think the thing about the business mind from the business training, and you realize, okay, you're a single dad, you have this new business, you have a daughter to take care of. This is before I met Kim. And if I'm going to make art, I'm going to find my own buyers. And that's really what's gone on. So I've done a lot of commission work that nobody's ever heard of. And, I know that is a very atypical way to build an artist career. But I've also seen a lot of artists who have become famous for 1 or 2 things, and the galleries can sell those things, but when the artist wants to change what they're making, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. The art world can become very reflective of the politics of the times. And when Arizona passed the 1070, our phone stopped ringing. And I would go visit I made a whole trip to New York to visit all of our clients, like, what's going on? And finally, Donald Batchelor, I think, said, look, at that time, the media had hyped up Arizona's law so much, it was like we were South Africa in apartheid. And literally, he just said, we can't do business with somebody that has Arizona in their name. And I thought, and I loved the logo, I loved the name. Jasper had started the company who I owed so much to. But I had to make a different move. So that's how, I think that was 2010. Well, it's a French term meaning artist workshop. And, you're just trying to get, there was Johnson Atelier in New York, or in New Jersey, outside of Princeton. And it just, the artworks in Berkeley, you got to just, but the Atelier, one of the things that's bothered me in this career is the term the foundry. The foundry is where we pour metal. There's so much more that goes on here that I wanted a different word. And part of the reason for the Beyond Bronze show is to raise both the morale, but also the recognition for the artisans who, make the art. We have an internship program. We've had it since, I think, 2002 with Mary Neubauer and ASU Sculpture Department. So the kids get credit and get paid. So they're regular employees, they're part-time, where they can work, 1 day a week or 3 afternoons a week to start, and a lot of our employees came out of that program. Out here in the West, you can say you want to be anything, and if you work hard enough, you can become that. The city had just passed the Percent for Art, formed an arts commission, but didn't have a percentage. And I think my part was simply to bring my team and sit at the city council and then speak in favor of the ordinance. She actually started out as an artisan at Loveland Foundry, our art castings in Colorado and Loveland, and then started making sculpture. And Yeah, she's very prolific and very, very good sculptor. So our biggest project with her was the Irish Memorial for Boston, which was a hull of a ship, and well, I think we teamed up with Art Castings. We did the mold and they did the castings, but she did the Women's Vietnam Memorial in D.C. on the Mall. Alan Hauser, what a great guy. Really one of the true gentlemen in sculptors. Just, so successful and just down to earth and honest and an incredible sculptor in whatever medium. Bronze, marble, you know, lots and lots of Alan Hausers at Shadoni. I'm the commission with the St. Francis, or the Franciscan Renewal Center. That was a cool project. It's 8-foot figure, St. Francis. It's one of those where there's a big ceremony and the bishop blesses you and your hands and your eyes, so that's all good. That was a series of years, and there was a previous artist that I think did a few of these plaques for what do they call their honoree of the year or Hall of Fame. So it's fun. I think probably Alice Cooper was my favorite one to do, to use the Alice Cooper font, and those are fun. Great project, super fun. We were approached by Orbital ATK, defense contractor company, but they had been involved in missiles and rockets and guidance systems and who knows what. And Jack Schmidt was the last Apollo mission. Apollo 17 was on their board. And so they commissioned us to do a life-size, it's a little bit over life-size, sculpture of him on the moon. And the strange part is, for a lot of these projects, is they said you're not going to see his face. So we received the commission, but they didn't provide anything. They didn't provide any equipment, anything. So we had to dive deep into the NASA files, which are all online, the Apollo files, to figure out how all the details of this, the spacesuit and we had it all done, or pretty close to being done, and then Jack came and told us everything and that was wrong, but told us how to fix it. So he's a very cool guy, and so that went to the Kennedy Space Center, and it's in the building where the Saturn V rocket is, hanging from the ceiling. Coach Hank, yeah, he's my football coach. And he was retiring, and they had named the athletic center after him. And so that was actually a donation for his retirement party. They had a big ceremony, and so, yeah, I mean, those kind of things are fun. I've done a lot of figures for Catholic Cemetery, and, just at cost, not any big artist fee, just this is what it costs to make it. Oh, that was Scott Hawkins in Detroit. That was called the Floating Citadel. And, a lot of his work is, he's always lived in Detroit and loves it. And a lot of his work is about the urban ecology. And that form is actually a Detroit sewer grate wrapped into a circle. That's at the new convention center in Detroit. I think the helping other thing comes when you reach a certain level of success, and then you have a responsibility to help younger artists. And I think just from a purely, there's a lot of talk about the economic impact of the arts on the economy. And I think we got QuickBooks about 4 years into the business, and Kim and I were looking at it, maybe to figure out our P&L but so we brought in $140 million. And all that went to the employees and goes out into the community, because I didn't get $140 million. And I think that's, to me, to be a small business person in the arts with no outside funding, I don't have loans, I think that's a success.
Our mission at the Shemer Art Center is to support and showcase Arizona artists, especially artists like Tom Bollinger, who give their time and talents and inspire so many other artists. At the Shemer, we offer a variety of visual art programming, exhibition, and events for artists of all ages. Our adult and youth classes, taught by professional artists, are so popular, they fill up very quickly. In fact, our summer camps this year sold out in 2 weeks, and we had 145 children still on our waiting list. This is why we are working to complete our current Expansion and Legacy campaign. Our goal is to add a new building to our campus, and so far we have raised over half of the funds needed. With your help, we can complete this project and start our planning process in 2025. For more information, visit our website or call us.
This sculpture is called Spiral, and it's a cast bronze made from a smaller model and enlarged. It has a ferric nitrate patina. This is an acrylic translucent sphere. My thoughts about when I was creating this were the dance that goes on in relationships. The title of this sculpture is Nurture. I guess it's a fairly literal interpretation, as this is an egg form, and these two outer forms are protecting it. So it's a little bit about being a parent and parenting. And what I always strive for is to have some pleasing lines and balance in the work. So this is fabricated bronze and cast bronze egg with gold leaf. The title of this sculpture is Origin. It's fabricated bronze with a hand-blown glass sphere. So like all my sculptures, I make a small model and sort out the design. And then in this case, I made patterns off the small model. And so this would be a pattern, and welded it together. And then this patina is called Gold Flash. It's ferric nitrate patina. This sculpture is called Icarus. The question is, where are Icarus's wings? But that wasn't really my concern as much as the energy of that story of wanting to fly too high and your wings will melt. So that's sort of what this is about. It's cast bronze with a black liver of sulfur patina. The title of this sculpture is Angela Scura. That is Italian for Black Angel. This is a maquette version of a larger 16-foot high version that I have at the Tempe Center for the Arts. It's cast bronze with a fairly polished surface, black patina, and gloss wax. Okay, the title of this sculpture is Imorama. Its inspiration for making this is the circle as a universal symbol of most tribal cultures and religions. And I just wanted to make a kind of a reflected pool with the polished hammered bronze and a patina that sort of reflect the topography of the planet a little bit. The title of this sculpture is Bliss One, and it's cast bronze. It's actually the maquette size. I haven't enlarged this one yet, but we have plans for that. The orb is a translucent resin. Like a lot of my pieces, it's reflecting on balance in one's life. This sculpture is titled Gaia, made a number of years ago. It's cast bronze, fabricated bronze, and stainless steel orb. The original sphere was a fiberglass earth shape with clouds and oceans, and so the idea and concept of the sculpture was that the two arms are protecting the earth and a little bit of environmental awareness point.
And then it evolved into this version, which is a stainless steel polished orb that's a mirror. And when people view the sculpture, they see themselves in the environment, in the sphere, and it's sort of a shift of responsibility to the viewer. The title of this sculpture, obviously, is The Raven. It's a cast bronze sculpture, cast with the lost wax method. The original maquette size was about 12 inches high, and so we 3D scanned the small version and then tool pathed the file and CNC milled this in foam. Then the foam is assembled. The sculpture was clayed up and sculpted by hand. Then negative rubber molds were made and the lost wax casting. So it's cast in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, and then assembled in bronze, metal chafed, and patinaed. The title of this sculpture is Red Abstract. It could have been called any number of things, but it was the goal. This is fabricated steel and paint. So there's a series of only 4 different art forms here that were water jet cut out of a plate, and then I assembled them, and for me it's a little bit like a bird flight path of red birds, but I like the movement, so I first made the small version, which is inside. Well, first I made a cardboard version to know what my shapes were going to be, and then when I had this water jet cut, I also had the material for the maquette so I could determine how I was going to assemble them. So the great part about this is it's you can get a fairly large sculpture that hopefully has a good design without the expense of molding and casting.
So we're all incredibly proud of my father. This body of work is an incredible collection of his ethos, his unwavering commitment to craft. Also to note how much he cares about his family and passing on his artistic sensibilities and values to me, to my daughter, and to generations to come. We're incredibly grateful to the Shemer and proud of not only Tom Bollinger, this show, but our partnership together.